many of these hustings have you done now altogether?
This year?
Yeah, altogether. This season, shall we say.
Oh, this season, yeah, no, this is the third, isn't it?
Second.
Well, Barrington,
third.
yeah,
Bassingbourne.
Shelford, and Bassingbourne.
A total of 5.
Shelford, Bassingbourn.
A total of 5.
And here,
Previous
3.
one, but this is kind of second.
So this is third.
A few.
We've done a few.
My answer is 3.
Okay. Candidates can't even agree on how many hustings they've been to.
It feels like more though.
No, I do. 3.
Some.
So one thing which interested me about the mayoral hustings, I went to the one in Sawston, and this was about 3 or 4 in, and what was happening with that was clearly that the candidates were picking up on points in terms of what others had said at earlier hustings. And do you find yourselves listening to each other, not necessarily to agree and pick up the policies of a fellow candidate, but just to be ready the next time with the quick answer?
Well, it's a debate, isn't it? So we're here to talk about our ideas, and of course, I suppose in some ways you have to know what the idea is to know why you might agree or oppose it, and that's a healthy thing. If you just stood up there and delivered a speech, and then the next one delivered a speech, and it had no relation to anything, it'd be a bit pointless, wouldn't it? I don't think we've changed our opinions, though. I don't think we've kind of changed our position on everything. I think we've been quite true to our original position.
I'm thinking more about counter-arguments than I am really about. You wouldn't change your position, otherwise head office might have a few words with you, I guess.
I think events have changed. Since our first hustings, actually the world has changed. I mean, big things are happening all the time, and also the questions from the audience have been very different tonight. So it's largely directed, and it should be, by what people are asking us.
And do you think you get slightly different questions because it's a rural constituency where maybe different communities have different things that are more important to them, so as opposed to maybe a city hustings where pretty much people would be coming from the same direction?
I'd say of the those that we've done so far, this one felt much more Brexity than Shelford.
Yeah.
I don't remember Shelford being so Brexity.
No.
Shelford, from memory, I don't think had any particular theme. It was a bit more wide-ranging, I think, wasn't it? Why that is, I couldn't tell you, but it certainly felt a bit different to this one.
The interesting thing, going back to your first question, is I think there's a few elements within some of the positions that have changed or evolved slightly or are evolving. And one of those that came up at the first was proportional representation and our stance on it generally. And I think that's quite an interesting one because Dan's sort of going, well, yeah, I'm sort of on board, but no, I'm not. Oh, maybe I am. No. And Heidi obviously said she was last time and is now sort of saying, well, yeah, I am, but I'm not sure which type of PR.
I suppose because I've learnt the value of that constituency link, having done the job for 2 years, where it's easier to be theoretical than to be done it, I suppose.
And then here comes the point about us all listening to what we're saying, which sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, and I'm as guilty as anyone. But when I've said, okay, this is the proportional system that I'm proposing and the Green Party are proposing, it is an additional member system which retains the community, the constituency MP, and so that is never going to be lost under that form of PR. And I think, personally, I think it's absolutely right that it isn't, because I think that's how it works best. But what it does do is it provides additional members to give a proportionality. So, that's an interesting one that's evolving.
I think our first hustings was at Village College, and it was interesting to me, of course, that the questions were really from that generation. It was about their ability to participate in the democratic system.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the question.
And how old were the audience at the college hustings?
15 and 16.
So not able to vote yet. Well, I think some of your policies might get them to vote sooner than might otherwise be the case.
Yeah.
But to answer your question there, though, I mean, you actually asked a question about local versus national issues, and about the PR, I just addressed that. I haven't changed my mind.
See, they can't help it. This is what happens.
well, as the point raised an assertion of what I said, and I think it's only fair to write the record on that. I haven't changed my mind. I think that I've said, though, the first past the post system doesn't work necessarily well, and it could be we could open up something else. But I still believe in a majoritarian system because I like the plurality of the parties, and I've always said that. Although I can see the benefits of PR, but I don't think it's the right answer necessarily. And I would just say, to answer your question about the actual issues coming up, this hustings did have a few local issues. So we talked about development, housing, about transport issues came up a little bit as well. But actually, it's a general election, and that's the important difference. The big picture is so massively important right now, and like a lot of us were saying, talking about, for instance, Brexit negotiations, about the future of the NHS, public services, education. I think that's much more on the agenda now than it has been for a long time, and that's getting the due attention it needed, I think, tonight.
And do you think you've all put the right topics on your election literature as it goes through people's letterboxes? I'm sure you've all put the key issues on there, but have you given the prominence to the ones you were, which are now getting back to yourselves in questions?
I would say so, and I think actually there's a chance, even though 5 weeks is a short amount of time, there's still a conversation happening. And we are hearing from people like we did tonight what their concerns are. So that will be reflected as the literature moves along. Dan mentioned the plurality of parties, and what strikes me in this election is the move to two big parties, and which makes me a little bit sad because I certainly got interested in UK politics because of smaller parties making a really important, honest contribution from the sidelines, and from the US where I'm from, that just doesn't exist, and it's just one or the other. And this just struck me as so much more interesting and something to get involved in. So I hope that that the third parties will continue to thrive.
Well, there's one small party which isn't represented here because they're not putting up a candidate is UKIP, of course. They're not standing in Cambridge either. They lost, of course, a great many number of seats in the course of the local elections which we've had recently. Yet at the same time, we saw Brexit coming out as quite an important issue.
I must say, at the county council, where I've been a councillor for quite a long time, some of the UKIP councillors have actually moved to the Conservative benches, so they've actually gone to the Conservative Party.
Gone to the Conservative Party or gone back to the Conservative Party?
Gone to the Conservative Party. They were first-time councillors, and they've gone to the Conservative Party, and they've re-stood as Conservatives. So I think some of that migration is accounted for in that way. And
well, I think it was very clear in the local election results that that's what was happening. It's very straightforward, but I think the point about a smaller party is a really good one. And for me, when I'm talking to people on the doorstep, especially in South Cambs, you do always get this coming back to you that it doesn't matter. And I've just had the conversation outside. I actually want to support you, they say, but it doesn't really matter anyway, and I'll probably vote Lib Dem or Labour just to see if I can maybe make an influence on getting the Tories out, which...
So that's you're a nice guy, we like your policies, but you're not going to win, so we're not going to vote for you, probably.
Yeah, and I think this is why I come back to the whole nature of our democratic system as it is at the moment. And unfortunately, it doesn't engage people in the way that I believe a really healthy, exciting democracy should do. And that should be for us to come out here and be able to talk to people and really engage them and say, well, look, this is why you should be voting for this. And then being able to put across that they know makes a difference, instead of making a cross that they know is not going to make a difference. And for me, we're living in a totally outdated democracy. It's not a modern democracy, it's not fit for purpose. And all this talk about trying to create consensual politics, trying to develop things, is meaningless without a proper PR system. And it would change how everyone did politics, it would change how people related to politics. And the sooner we can sort it out, the better for everyone, as far as I'm concerned.
Let's pick up then on the topic of Brexit, and particularly the needs that people in South Cambs have from a Brexit deal, assuming that's how we go forward. What do people... Heidi, let's start with you. What does somebody who lives in South Cambs need out of those negotiations?
Well, there are lots of different needs depending on what part of the constituency you're speaking to that person in, their age, what profession they're working in, what their priorities are. And it struck me as I've been in very different parts of the constituency that our assumption, we're all Remainers around this table, we all voted Remain, not everybody is. absolutely is. That's not the case. And what's really surprised me, and it's not an exact science, of course, because half the people aren't in, you only talk to a snapshot, but I have heard more impatience with, can we just get on with it, than worry about what's happening. And I have to say that has surprised me. And that's a genuine observation. I wouldn't, be well.
Is that simply because it's on the news? I sit and read the news on Cambridge 105, and it's here we go, another Brexit story, which doesn't actually move the story on, but somebody important has said something, and that's reflected in so many news bulletins.
I think there's uncertainty as well at the base of that, and I share that. I think the other thing that surprised me is the number of people that I've talked to who voted to leave, who have said, actually, do you know what? I'm not sure now. I think if I had my time again, I wouldn't. Partly because of uncertainty, and partly because, as we talked about tonight, the complexities of this decision, which weren't really discussed prior to the referendum, are now being discussed. And over the next 2 years, as that evolves and develops, which is why I come back to the Green Party position, that we are saying after that period, whenever it is, whether it's 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, whenever Theresa comes back with a deal, it should be a deal that's put in front of the general public again. It should be there, because the quality of debate and the depth of debate will be entirely different, and there will be people who go from leave to remain and back and back.
But is it not being optimistic to think that the quality of debate will be better than it was last time?
I don't think it is. I think that's doing a disservice to the general public, because I think, and the people that I've been speaking to who have said, actually, do you know what, I think I'd rethink my position. It's purely down to the fact that they've had that time and they've had that debate going on around them, which they didn't have before. And I genuinely don't see why democratically it's a bad thing. I know Dan's got this thing about leadership, but we had a democratic referendum to take us out, fine, no problem with that at all. But in 2 or 3 years' time, I can't understand why it's not also democratic to be able to say, right, well, there you go, there's the terms of the deal, let's put it in front of the people, and let's see what they say.
I suppose the fear is, sorry if I may just come up, the fear is, and in plain one-dimensional terms, I don't disagree with that, but the fear is if the EU know that's going to be on the table, what on earth will give them any reason to properly negotiate with us? If they know that back door is there, of course they're not going to give us a good deal, because they'll know, well, there's a chance that they'll stay in anyway, and that this is the game of poker, isn't it? And I think that's the risk if that's there as a backstop.
I think the question was really, how does it affect
South Cambs in particular? What does the person in the street or the person in the field, maybe with South Cambs, what do they want out of the negotiations?
Well, what I've found by talking to so many businesses, schools, shops, enterprises, is that you can't just say, well, Brexit is this. Brexit is part of our economy, part of our society. So how do you extricate yourself? It is, I feel, it's like cutting off a limb and then expecting to function in the same way. A school head teacher I went to visit a couple of weeks ago said that the impact of Brexit on her school funding was that the cost of transport, the cost of food, the cost of services was going up and creating intolerable pressure on an already difficult financial situation. Now, the parents at that school are not going to be sitting with the head teacher looking at her spreadsheet, her budget work, but Brexit is there. And the same story is repeated in different ways depending on the business. I went to see an agricultural, agri-food consultant, and this will be your area of expertise, but he said the way that Brexit is playing itself out across the industry is very diverse depending on the type of agriculture, whether it's livestock, whether it's soft fruit, whether it's arable farming.
So is it like variable uncertainty according to the sector, or are there some people who think it's fine, it's business as usual?
I wish I could show you a letter that was sent to me just before we broke the general election. The language was quite fruity, and basically from a company in Newton that are just powering forward, and sort of saying, if anybody says to you, Heidi, that Brexit is bad for business, well, beep, tell them this, because we are up and exporting more than we ever have. So there is a different side to the story.
Well, I would just say that, because I've been politely just listening to all the arguments, and now I'm going to have my say as well. So, okay, when it comes to scientific research, the third biggest recipient of that research funding from the European Research Council is Cambridge University. The one above that is Spain, the one above that is France. So actually, when it comes to that funding, that's a massive part of our economy. And if we think that's not going to be a problem if we leave the European Union with a bad deal, then I think we're sort of deluding ourselves. That's going to have a massive impact. Equally, this kind of idea that somehow we won't have a deal and leave the European Union is also a disaster. So yes, you could say that people on the doorstep individually might have concerns about things, but these are the big picture things that will have a massive impact. And I think this period of uncertainty means that business is worried. Yes, you might have a few examples where business does well, but I think overall uncertainty is not something that business wants, and that is a big problem as well. So if you don't get those things in place, then that is the big problem we're going to face.
Okay, we have an online question which we'll bring to you. This is from John, who's following us on YouTube, and John says, the future of prosperity of the country and constituency rests on the level of education we provide our young people.
Yep.
How will the candidates plan to lift standards without leaving pupils behind? And how does Heidi feel about her party's proposals on lunches, pupil funding and tuition fees? I'm assuming, Heidi, that John is referring to this idea. I think Breakfast Club has been suggested.
I wonder whether the bit where he's talking about lifting standards without leaving pupils behind, whether that's a reference to grammar schools maybe.
Could very well be what stands. You've got free schools around as well, of course, a few opening locally.
So on the grammar schools thing, I've been, and I always try not to use the word clear, because politicians say, let me be clear, but I have been very clear on this from the moment. There's a whole page dedicated to it on my website, from when the idea of grammar schools first sort of came back into debate, was that I don't agree with them. I don't think we need them here in South Cambridgeshire. I think there's possibly an argument in some parts of the country with parental choice.
Do we need free schools either?
I think they've been proven to work really well, actually. And it's a blend. What it shouldn't be is forced of any one kind. And certainly grammar schools, unequivocally, we do not need here in South Cambridgeshire. And I put it, I forget whether it was the Prime Minister or the Education Secretary, but in the House of Commons, I put it to them that the money that would be spent on bringing grammar schools back would be frankly far better spent addressing the poor funding that we've had in Cambridge. That was my view. The point about the breakfast lunch, so this is the proposal that instead of us where currently every child, regardless of their family's income, gets a free school lunch through primary school, instead of that we will offer free breakfast to everybody, regardless of income, because breakfast actually has been shown to, from a brain function point of view, get the kids up and ready more so than lunch does. And it's heartbreaking when you go into a school and you can see some children clearly haven't had breakfast before they get there. So everybody will get breakfast. The kids whose parents are on low incomes will still get lunch, and not only will they get lunch at primary school, they'll also get it in secondary school. So I think that's a better use of money, enabling everybody to have breakfast. The day starts together, all the children sitting together, and then the poorer children still continue to have lunch right through to primary and secondary school. And I think that's a great idea.
Okay, Simon, I think you're a school gentleman, aren't you?
I am, yeah. And I just, this goes back to one of your original questions about how things evolved during the hustings, because the grammar schools have come up before, and we've collectively said no to grammar schools in South Cambs and
nationally.
And
nationally as
this
well.
is where I was going, Dan.
Yep.
This is where I know you're very passionate
Go
about
for it,
this.
brother.
Dan and I had said, well, hold on. Heidi's saying no to grammar schools in South Cambs, but there's a question mark about her position about grammar schools nationally. So this would be a good opportunity to clear that one up.
So Heidi, would you like us to open a grammar school in Kent?
Well, as I just said, I thought I said in my last statement that we don't need them here. I don't believe any type of schooling should be forced, but if there is in a particular area, parents want it, it's their children. So I don't think it's wrong that if parents decide that that's what collectively in that particular town, wherever it might be, I don't think we should stand in their way. Should we force them on areas? Should we parachute them in and tell parents and local school communities they've got to have them whether they want them or not? Then no, absolutely.
So reversing Simon's point, presumably then that means that if somebody in South Cambs or a group of parents, governors got together, they took a vote or whatever means they decided, and they wanted a grammar school, turned themselves into a grammar, you wouldn't be over happy about it, but you'd say, oh, it's fine, that's your choice.
Well, I think what I would do, I would question what it would, because it's a living, breathing dynamic as an education system in a local area, because where do the teachers go? Does it pull the good teachers away? What about the technical education? What about the bright kids, the weaker children? You have to challenge whether just because you want something, is it going to be successful, or is the surrounding ecosystem of the education system going to suffer as a consequence? And if you show that it's going to suffer as a consequence because all the great teachers move, for example, then you say absolutely not. You might like it, but it's not going to work here and it's going to damage the rest of the education system, which ultimately isn't going to be the right result for the children.
So can I ask you a question then? Just I don't want to pick on you because it's not fair, actually, but would you vote for grammar schools nationally?
No.
So you'd go against the whip on grammar schools? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So I just want to raise the issues raised there, but I'll start with the grammar school one. It's been proven time and again that the children who go to grammar schools are the ones who have the extra tuition, who are taught how to pass the driving test. Sorry, I was going to use that as an analogy. Are taught how to pass the test. Now, for instance, if we said to all 17-year-olds, if you pass the driving test, you get to go to university. Well, the ones who are taught because they get paid for lessons, they would be able to go and pass the driving test. The ones who aren't trained to pass the driving test would never be able to. And it's been proven time and again that students who come from poorer backgrounds, who are brighter, are not able to go to grammar schools, and they're written off at the age of 11. I mean, in all honesty, I don't think I'd have passed the 11 plus at the age of 11.
Although, to be fair, not defending the policy, because I still don't think it's fundamentally right. The proposals have said that it's not just at 11, that children will be able to come into the system later on.
Yeah, but actually it's the principle that's the problem, because actually to have a grammar school without regressive policies attached to it is called a comprehensive. So if we only funded those comprehensives properly, then actually we'd have a good education system for everyone, where we don't write some people off at different age groups, whatever the age is, we have a system that's there for everyone. Now, the issues that are in education now that John raised are really serious. So, when it comes to, for instance, the funding formula, we know full well locally, and we all agree to this, that it's woefully inadequate. And I think it's a shame that we're going through a consultation process at the moment, which we don't know what the result of that will be. So I hope that means we don't have any schools losing out on funding. Now, the Conservative manifesto says we're not going to, but actually it references schools that get more funding currently. So it's not really that clear if schools will lose out on their funds at the moment. And that's the concern that I'm hearing from head teachers, and I've visited schools who have told me this directly. Secondly, it's about actually cutting the funds that go into the trusts and into the local schools, and those local education cuts have been a real problem, whereby now we've got teachers leaving the profession, meaning that class sizes are increasing. And I know as a teacher myself in the past, it's marking and planning and running classrooms with massive numbers of students, which is the tough part of education. It means you have less of a connection to each individual student. They're writing less because actually you don't see their work as often because you're marking so much work, and teachers are getting stressed, and that is why thousands are leaving the profession. So instead of trying to recruit new teachers only, we need to think about why we've got this plug out of the bath right now with teachers leaving, because actually I've left the profession recently because it's unworkable, and that is because of bad government policy.
Okay, Susan?
Well, grammar schools are selective, and they will take money away and take resource away from our comprehensive schools. And I think we really have to have a consistent policy, and we need to support our comprehensive schools for everyone.
And by consistent, would you say that you can't open, it has to be this particular school if a new one opens in an area?
I don't understand how there can be a differentiated Tory policy on grammar schools for South Cambs and for the rest of the country.
But I think it's because it's done at the local level, often by the county council, isn't it?
I think that we need, the bottom line is we need to support our comprehensive schools, and we need for them to be as good as possible.
A comprehensive school, or keeping the money within the local authorities rather than to take it to central areas?
Yes, we do have a free school. I think the issue with free schools is that teachers need to be accredited. The other question,
all schools, that's happening. All schools and academies, that should be the case.
Absolutely. The other question about breakfasts versus school lunches. What I've heard head teachers say is that actually the logistics of providing breakfast, regardless of the nutritional debate on which meal is going to give the child a better outcome, it's actually quite a challenge to open the school early. It's a staffing cost, and there are all kinds of implications that one has to deal with. And so I don't think it's so straightforward. And I think also the consensus is that the hot meal at lunch is the meal that really will be making a difference to children.
Can I just say on that one point, actually? Well, two things, actually, so I've just stolen the mic. Firstly, when it comes to the breakfast proposal from the Conservative government, this is one of their poorly costed schemes, because they said it's going to cost 60 million.
I think the Institute for Fiscal Studies says a lot of people had poorly costed manifestos.
Well, can I just pick you up on that point, actually? Because some of the manifestos are actually costed, and some of them aren't costed. And to say we're going to put money in because of a growing economy is not good enough. That's trickle-down economics. And it means there's no pledge there. So when the Tories don't fund things, then they can say, well, we never actually promised we would. So about the point I was raising then, so £60 million is what's been pledged for this breakfast idea. And actually it's been said it will cost 400 million. So there's a massive problem there whereby breakfast will cost 7p a child. What can you get for 7p?
Half a variety pack of cornflakes, potentially.
No milk. And second point, I've got a letter here. Is this actually live? Yep. This letter, if you want to see it, this is from School Funding Cuts. This letter itself, I recommend you look at it. It will be on my website, where you can see what head teachers are saying. This isn't actually a partisan document. It's what head teachers are saying about the cuts, and I suggest that everyone reads it to see what's really going on inside our schools at the moment.
I think I've got that letter.
I had my milk taken away by the then Education Secretary some time ago.
Now I've got a lunch snatcher, mate.
Can we just celebrate the fact that we have got clarity that Heidi will vote against grammar schools? So
yes, here. We
are now all on the same page. No to grammar schools.
Here.
That's good. Let's turn our attention maybe to transport. It's a double problem, I suppose, really, potentially more maybe, but it's not just getting into Cambridge and getting back again. Once you've done that, it's getting around the villages, nipping from, I don't know, Barrington to Shepworth to Haslingfield and back again without, it's nice to go to Cambridge, but not if you only want to go to the next village along. How have each of your parties resolved that one? Let's start with Susan.
Well, we live in a rural district, and there is a very nice train line in part of it, and the rest of it is basically cut off. We have been absolutely starved to death at local authority level in terms of funding to subsidise transport, and transport to rural areas does cost money. We are operating on almost nothing, but we do need a very good public transport system for our rural area. We need to be able to access the good rail links that we've got, but it will cost money. The new mayor has an opportunity to do something creative with bus franchising. I haven't heard yet that he's captivated with this idea, but I hope that we can change his mind.
His 100-day plan referred more to potential feasibility studies, I think, or maybe underground links around the city.
And the other thing that we can do, and we could certainly do this with City Deal, is that, and we've shown this in the A10 corridor, you can develop cycle, walking, scooter paths that are relatively cheap to construct compared with roads, and they have a demonstrable effect on travel to work. And we know that businesses are very, very keen to develop these because they increase productivity and they increase workforce health.
For some of the elderly, say, I don't know, a woman in her 70s who wants to visit her friend two villages away. She's not necessarily all, some might be able to quite happily, but everybody's not going to be able to get on their bike.
The lady that I know in that situation, who lives in Melbourne, and she's a carer for her mother in Falmere, gets everywhere by mobility scooter, and she gets to Falmere more easily now with the cycle walking path. She takes her mobility scooter and goes to Falmere. Part of it, there is no path. Part of it, there is. And if there were a path to Royston, she said she will go to her GP in Royston without the need for a lift because it will be safe to do so. So I think we really have an amazing opportunity to have a culture change in the way we get around.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the frustrating thing is that we have bus companies, for instance, who will only go where the profit is. And so, if if you're in South Hardwick as an example, one bus in, one bus out, that means how do you get to your GP? How do you get into other villages, see your friend? And that is a real issue. And I think, I'm not saying that buses is the whole picture, but that is a big one for our region. Equally, nationalisation of things like the railway. I think running public transport on the lines of providing a service for people where it's needed, as well as making profit as well, but it goes back to the Treasury, is a really, really good idea, and I think we could move towards that.
Actually, our train service here in South Cambs from London to Cambridge is very much closer to a nationalised service than we've ever seen before, and it's a management-style contract where all profit does go to the Department for Transport. And I've been disappointed that the company cannot be as innovative with its fares as the previous company. And I would always have said, as a rail campaigner, the idea of nationalising rail sounds so good, it's so appealing. But I've watched this in practice now, and we have negotiated very good fares for students. And the previous company, First Capital Connect, had a fantastic scheme of free travel to work for anyone who got a job through Job Centre Plus, to give them a month of free travel to get on their feet. Now, the new company can't do that because it has to return a profit on all of its travel. It is not allowed, through the terms of its contract, to give things away.
So where's the sense?
It's been more difficult to be creative.
It's also about the general approach we have as a society towards our transport system. And the problem is that for decades, as a society, we haven't prioritised transport. And we are living in the result.
Yes.
Yeah.
You go to Holland, you have a fantastic public transport system, you have bike paths that connect the villages. You can get from one village to the next easily. And what we actually need is a much bigger look at what we're doing with public transport. And we need to invest as a country in that concept, as well as obviously the financial infrastructure. But that concept is lost here. And we shouldn't be behind Germany, behind Holland, behind Belgium. We should be absolutely able to put in place a cycling system, a walking system, a bus system, a train system that actually gives us something that is approximate to those European neighbours of ours. And we're so far away from it because we don't, as a society, have that mindset. And we've got to change that. And unfortunately, that's got to come from the politicians. And I can't see that the Tory government, as we probably will get, has that mindset, and that's a big problem.
Heidi, is it just a lack of joined-up thinking, maybe, on this? Not enough sort of looking far ahead? Because a lot of the problems that we have, you might want to get a bus running between villages fairly quickly, but a lot of things need to be thought about and built over time. It's not necessarily going to happen in the lifetime of one Parliament, assuming it stretches the full 5 years next time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, our feet can't take it anymore. I think there's two angles for us here in South Cambs. There's the economic angle around our need to get cars off the road and get those brains and skills moving around, and also the rural isolation point, which I think we've all picked up in the villages. From an economic point of view, so the government, I think, do get it. Money for the 428, an expressway, a rail link with Oxford, train station at Addenbrooks, which is a project I'm leading on, and we are within touching distance of getting it built very swiftly, with our hope is almost no public money at all. I mean,
who's the money going to come from? From AstraZeneca, or?
So the main developer is Lang, and it's essentially it is such the real estate value around the Addenbrooks campus that the return on investment for them is an absolute no-brainer. Yes, and of course there's a commercial facility there, a cafe, perhaps a restaurant maybe. But we have to take advantage of that. That value of our land to do things that don't necessarily pull on the public purse strings. In terms of ruralisation, Susan hit on it with our new mayor. Those powers and the buses bill that we got through Parliament in the last session absolutely devolve those powers down to mayors to take the franchises away from the likes of Stagecoach and Whippet. I have to say I've had really positive conversations with Whippet. Stagecoach, I'll be honest, is a little more difficult. I think there it is just about the money. If it doesn't make money, it's a more difficult conversation. Whippet have been trying with me very innovatively to just it's not perfect, but okay, this route here, can we just nip in and just can we not just do that?
Because Whippet have taken the occasional service which Stagecoach has said, oh, we don't really interested in this.
And
Whippet have gone in and used it instead.
Yeah, they get the community angle. I have a lot of time for Whippet. It seems to me that they're trying very, very hard and looking to see, because they get how important rural transport is. But this is within the gift of the mayor, and he has the powers to direct money, subsidise it where we need to. But you're right, this is why we've been desperate. Whether you agree with the idea of the mayor or not, but this holistic view of transport across the whole of Cambridgeshire, and that's the role that he should be fulfilling.
But we're trying to fix a problem, and the problem is, what these fixtures will actually kind of put a plaster over the wound, but it won't actually get rid of the wound in the first place. And just to raise the point there, why should we have...
I should travel that way, everywhere.
Very bad.
Wow.
What is it? Oh my goodness. It's okay.
I've been missing him personally.
Live, everybody, at Ducati.
So my point is this then. So why is it we should have then? Why is it we should have then a system whereby...
So I interrupt you, Dan, for breaking news.
This is important.
The chips are here. Fantastic.
Chips.
Thank you.
Chips and the bike. I think that's it.
Broadcast temporarily unavailable.
It doesn't normally happen at Cambridge 105, but not allowed food in the studio.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's a South Cambs business, isn't it?
That crispy one, please. Love crispy chips.
So the point is this then, that is a system whereby unfortunately we see there's a broken system, it's not working. So my point is this then, why are we having companies being run by the government, such as the Dutch government for instance, which means that we're not actually putting money back into the treasury but into other companies' hands, and that is a real problem. And actually if you look at other countries like Germany, they do have nationalisation that works well. It's a shame that other parties aren't listening to that.
Yeah. Mr. Producer, do I have time for one more?
Go on, or if the guys want to do another one, then...
No more questions? Two more questions. Okay, let's see
how long we answer.
Well, I'm going to go. I've got one which is let's go to the last little one I had, which it's really about the constituency itself, because I think 3 out of the 4 of you were here this time a couple of years back. Susan, you've taken on the role of the Lib Dem candidate this time around. But let's be hopeful here and say in 5 years' time, when the next election takes place, do you think we'll still have the South Cambs constituency in the form that it is now, or will have parts of it have been donated to neighbouring constituencies?
I'd like to believe in the consultation process in which people are listened to. I feel a bit cynical in terms of the outcome, that there's not much of a chance of those boundaries changing. I know people are it's a very emotive subject, and the constituency being spread across 2 local authorities is not it's not a good platform for an MP. You've got a lot of extra work. You've got totally different constituencies in those local authorities. It doesn't make sense. It's not very efficient. But what do I honestly think is going to happen? Well, let's say, might as well be hopeful, and that good sense will be seen. Unfortunately, though, with the reduction of of elected representatives at all levels of government, which Simon alluded to in our previous hustings, it's a great shame that the number of people elected to serve the population is being reduced, and that is what is necessitating these boundary changes, which end up being very arbitrary because they have to be.
Simon, is it really a cost issue, or is there something deeper?
I think that, being cynical, I think there might be something slightly deeper with some of these boundary changes, but for me, I hope what will happen is that because we've had this election, there might be a reset button pressed. We've had a huge number of people come onto the electoral register for the EU referendum. Another chunk of people come.
Well, they won't necessarily vote again, of course.
No, the issue being that the existing boundary statistics are now so far out of date that hopefully there'll be a reset button pushed, because there are, I think the figure is something like 3 million people that came on before the EU referendum. There's another million that have come on since. So there's huge numbers of people that have come on, and hopefully that will mean that they'll re-look at it and go, okay, actually let's start again, because I to answer the question, would hope that South Cambs would still be retained, but as Susan says, it won't be unless there is a reset button.
And Dan, it must change the dynamic, really. For example, if, say, Queen Edith's ends.
Well, it's an interesting fact that ward is in
what happens there?
this constituency. I know a lot of people in Queen Edith's feel they are part of the city, and I agree with them, because I was campaigning the other day in Queen Edith's, and then I bumped into Julian Huppert. And I was like, oh, hello, you've got that side of the street and I've got this side. So it's a bit interesting how one side of the street's one constituency, one's the other. So
probably
that
feel the same
change.
having your dustbins collected at the moment as well.
By Julian Huppert, no, he didn't do that. But yeah, so I think it's an interesting point that you have some places like Trumpington which feel a bit more like South Cambs, areas like Queen Edith's feel more like the city. But actually I think the issue really is the one that you raised, and that's the important one. Do you know how many members of the House of Lords there are? There's 850, and there's 650 MPs. So we are actually under the number of peers in the House of Lords, unelected chamber, and that's another debate to have another time. We're now talking about bringing down the number of MPs, but we're still quite happy, and actually at the current rates, the House of Lords is growing. So I think that's a really odd system the Tories are putting forward to cut down on the MPs. It's totally cynical, but I think it's true. And at the same time, to increase the House of Lords. So that's a bizarre dynamic, and I think that's an attack on democracy. That's the real issue here. Not which community do you feel part of in your constituency, but actually who's representing you, who's actually saying what you want them to say in Parliament. And if you have fewer MPs, I fear that you're just going to get lost, because there's going to be more of you and less of them.
You're coming round to PR again, Dan. I can feel it.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
Who's representing you? Is your voice being heard? It's all there. It just needs to.
See, this system's been almost there from 1215 and since Magna Carta, and I like that.
my view, for what it's worth, I mean, we're the reason the boundary review was in train for us here in South Cambs actually is the opposite of reducing numbers of MPs. It's because we're growing so quickly and we have simply too many people. I would have been devastated to lose Queen Edith's. I love it. I love the fact that Adam Brooks is there, the Bioscience Campus, the fact that Papel could move there. But I agree, it kind of feels like a better fit with the city, begrudgingly. But Susan is absolutely right. For us to lose some of the southern villages, it's just potty. Lose those into Hertfordshire and pull in some of Huntingdon instead. I mean, that made no sense at all. I was maybe rose-tinted, but I was positive that the consultation process might have worked. I think you're right, it will be reset now, it's bound to be, because the rules have changed. Because I worked really hard to get everybody to join in the consultation. And the Boundary Commission have a map where they can see all the blobs of where somebody has written in. We were like the third highest constituency in the whole of the country in terms of rate of return. And you looked at the mouth of South Cambs, and all along the 505 was just this sea of blobs. And I thought, people really care about this.
But that's so depressing, because even though we were the third most, they still went, we don't care.
No, but they didn't. We never heard the answer.
We
didn't.
We've just been through the same. We've just been through a change on county boundaries, and we now have some absolutely unwieldy county divisions. We've got 12 parishes that have one end has nothing to do with the other end.
And it's tricky, I suppose, isn't it? Between there's a difference between making it sensible in numbers and getting places that actually fit with another place.
Yeah, I mean, what's been lost is a sense of community, and school communities in particular, where you don't now have your village college with your feeder primary schools, and that's a natural building block in society. And I think that's what the Boundary Commission sadly missed. And unfortunately, I don't think they did listen at county level to the input. A lot of input, again, from this area, as Heidi says. It didn't make a blind bit of difference, and that makes people feel very cynical and disenfranchised.
Yep, exactly.
Although I suppose the one positive to take out of whatever your views on whether the structure's right or not, reducing the number of politicians, whether locally or nationally, I've yet to find a person on the street who wants us to spend more on politics. If anything, I find they really don't.
I disagree.
But generally, most people are still, I find, very cynical about politicians.
Yeah, cynical about politicians, but not about local representation.
Representation.
Local representation.
But
it's not a cost issue.
Nothing in the
It's definitely not.
Nothing is free.
How much is a district councillor getting as a stipend?
Talking more at MP level.
County councillor.
But why aren't we cutting down the House of Lords then? Why aren't we cutting down the House of Lords? It's about a cost issue. That Ermine is really expensive.
It's not a cost issue.
So let's get rid of the House. Some of the members of the House of Lords.
I mean, I've heard people say, I might as well not bother contacting my poor councillor. How on earth can my poor councillor serve all of these people from here to there, I'm not even going to bother. So, of course, everything costs something, but I don't think cost is what this is about. It's about having a voice.
More the reason for a parish, a district, a county, an MP to work as a team. And we work together so that people are not on their own in dealing with issues. And
maybe, but why cut out the number of MPs? Yeah. That's the issue. I think we all agree. I think we all agree exactly as well. Yes, we all agree with the system. I think it's the fact that we're having representation taken away from it. That's the problem. Exactly. Not the layers of the tiers. And I think teamwork's a good thing. Completely agree. But we need to have those representatives there. Otherwise, it's not really representative.
I think we've certainly seen some teamwork demonstrated today. The chips, I think, are about to move.
Very good chips.
They're very nice, but possibly about to move into no overall control. So possibly a good point to wrap things up for this. Thank you very much if you were watching us live, or just maybe playing it back a little later on. And thanks everyone. And it'll be nice to meet again in 5 years. It will be nice to meet again sooner, but I suspect the electorate can face that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.